Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another drum lesson. In today's drum lesson, we're going to talk about bass drum technique, specifically for the beginners. My hopes with this drum lesson are you'll take away a few tips to help you practice and develop your bass drum foot. In today's lesson, I'm going to discuss two different techniques, the heel down and heel up approaches. First, I'll talk about foot positioning. I'll show you how to place your foot on the footboard and get started with that. Second, I'll show you the motions for the heel down and heel up techniques. And third, I'll explain some things to watch out for that may cause fatigue or lack of control. Finally, I'm going to demonstrate an easy to follow exercise in both the heel down and heel up approaches. I'll demonstrate this at various tempos so that you can see the motion of the foot. Let me hop behind the camera and we'll get started.
Okay, let's take a look at how we should position our foot on the footboard. The first misconception a lot of new drummers have is that your foot must line up perfectly with the footboard, meaning your heel is lined up with the heel plate and the rest of your foot extends up the board. This happens to not be the case most of the time, and I'll explain why. First, I have a size 11 shoe, and if I line my foot up perfectly on the footboard with my heel on the heel plate, you'll notice that my toes are jammed up into the area of the cam on the pedal, and my shoe scrapes the spring as I work the pedal. Check out the movement of my foot when I line up perfectly with the footboard. For me, if I pull my foot down the footboard too much like this, it feels better than being all the way up in the cam, but I still have to work really hard for every beater stroke. I personally like having my foot about 3/4 of the way up the pedal board. This position is where I get the best control, power, and response from my pedal. The last thing I'll address with the positioning of the foot on the footboard is how your foot rests on the pedal. For me, and the way my bass drum is lined up in regards to the rest of my kit, having my foot lined perfectly straight up and down on the board puts my leg in an unnatural and uncomfortable body position. What I do is let my leg and foot lay in the most natural, comfortable position like so. You can see that my heel is slightly angled off the pedal. Again, this position is due to how my drum set is configured as a whole. If I were to angle my bass drum to the right slightly more, my heel would probably line up more with the pedal, but I'm not too worried about that. Now that we've talked about how to position the foot on the pedal, let's discuss the two techniques I demonstrate, which are the heel down and heel up techniques. The heel down technique is a basic technique where the motion comes from pivoting the ankle. To perform the heel down technique, locate the positioning on the pedal where you're comfortable as discussed before and flex from the ankle like so, pressing down on the footboard until your beater strikes the drum. Notice how I let the beater return to the start position between each stroke like this. Essentially, I'm just flexing my ankle to put the pedal into motion and letting the pedal do the rest of the work from there. The action of my beater to the head of the drum is much like dribbling a basketball. If I were to stop the beater against the head after each stroke, I would essentially have to work harder and tire out quicker. This would be much like driving your drumstick into the head after every stroke. I'm not saying there isn't a time or a place where doing so may not result in a desired sound, but for the most part, I would recommend against it. When practicing your heel down technique, be sure that your foot stays in contact with the pedal board the whole time. If the ball of your foot raises off the board, this will result in a lack of control and you will fatigue very quickly in the area of your shin. Check out how sloppy and uncontrolled the beater motion is if my foot loses contact with the pedal board between strokes. To recap the heel down motion, first, find your foot position. Second, flex from the ankle. Third, let your beater return to the start position between each stroke, much like dribbling a basketball. And fourth, keep your foot in contact with the pedal board at all times. Let's take a look at the heel up approach now. To perform this technique, you'll want to find the right foot position and balance point on the pedal board in the same way you did with the heel down approach. The main difference in this approach is that after we find our foot position, we'll raise our heel off the footboard like so. You'll notice that I raise my heel just slightly. I found that for me, a slight raise gives me the control, power, and speed that I desire without putting too much strain on my leg. Some drummers will raise their heel higher like so. You'll have to experiment and see what feels best for you and your setup and style of music you are playing. The heel up approach gives you a few more options. You can raise your heel and flex from the ankle only. This approach will give you a lot of control and speed, Or you can do a combination of movements involving your leg and ankle to add a bit more power to your stroke. As with the heel down approach, you'll want to make sure you keep the ball of your foot in contact with the pedal at all times. Lifting off the board will result in a lack of control and you will tire quickly. Okay, let's recap the heel up approach. First, find your foot position or balance point. Second, raise your heel slightly. Third, flex from the ankle or the leg ankle combo, depending what you prefer. Fourth, let the beater return to the start position between each stroke. And fifth, be sure to stay in contact with the pedal at all times. Now that we've discussed both the heel down and heel up approaches of bass drum playing, I'm going to run you through an easy to follow exercise that will help you develop these movements. Exercise will start with 4 quarters and add 1/8 note at the end of each measure until we have a full bar of eighth notes. We will then work our way back down to quarter notes by subtracting 1/8 note at a time. I'll demonstrate this exercise in both the heel down and heel up approaches at several different tempos so you can see the movement of the pedal and the foot. I'll start at 90 BPM, then I'll go to 110 BPM, then 140 BPM, then 200 BPM, demonstrating all of these tempos in both the heel down and heel up approaches. I hope this lesson gave you some insight on some beginner bass drum techniques. If you enjoyed this video and found it to be a useful educational tool, please give it a thumbs up and a share. Also, please subscribe to my channel. I'll have many more lessons, covers, and transcriptions coming soon. Thanks everyone. Take care.